All right, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining the Boston Office 365 user group. Welcome to our May session. Diving right in, I am Dimitri. I'm one of the organizers here. Along with me, we have Bill and Dave, who help keep the lights on and run the show. So we'll dive into our agenda. So as typical, we'll cover some of the updates that we have that have been announced since we've last met a month ago. We have Stacy, who's our featured speaker today, and then we'll close it out with some Q&A and some other community events and updates. So the previous session was we held office hours. So we had a lot of Q&A, a lot of community questions and feedback for those that were able to join us in that call. Hopefully you learn a bit about Copilot and related technologies. So in terms of updates from last time, there have been a lot of updates because Microsoft just had their annual Microsoft 365 community conference last week. I'm not going to attempt to cover all of the updates in the coming slides, but I did cherry pick a few that I think would be interesting to our members here. So the first is a new sharing experience coming that are called Hero Links. And the intention is to really standardize the sharing dialogues across all of the different interfaces within Microsoft 365 where you can share content. I believe they said there was roughly 50 different entry points into sharing today. Now this will be unified into one experience. And in addition, some of the default settings will be changed to only share people in the link that you've added, as opposed to the everyone in the org link that is default on most tenants. And then there's also some additional visualizations in terms of tagging external participants as part of this. In addition to the sharing experience, there's some additional updates that are coming in terms of bulk editing of permissions. As we all know, if we need to go into SharePoint and modify multiple file or folder permissions, it's not an easy task. You have to really go one by one or use a third-party tool. Some of the new interfaces are going to provide for bulk editing across the board. SharePoint is also bringing back URLs that are links to the actual files to make it easy to copy and paste and share with individuals. For those laughing here, this was a very known feature from the on-prem days, and then at some point the file length restrictions came in place, so Microsoft redid the entire URL system. Now they're bringing back a new URL system that's going to make it easier to just copy and paste. And last but not least, when sharing files, you also will now have the ability to add file summary with Copilot if you're licensed for it, which would allow the receiver to understand a bit about what the document is about before they have to jump into it. Mike put in the chat window the new old URL system. That is correct. The next is that Microsoft is simplifying approval workflows. Approval workflows are probably some of the more common ones that are easily initiated from within the system. But as opposed to following the full Microsoft Flow user path, they're making it a little bit more user-friendly with the ability to, with a few clicks, select who the approvers are, you type them in, you decide if you need a response from both or just one. And then you click submit, and then there's a submission column where you can come in and see what the status is. Just again, taking some of the more common features and making them more straightforward. Microsoft is bringing autofill columns from lists into libraries now as well. And this gives you the ability to define columns, such in this case, we have the little Copilot icon next to flight time, release time, and stock status based on these drones in this example. And these were all generated based on AI pulling and understanding the document and extracting these values. So Microsoft previously used to charge 5 cents per page for this kind of activity. They've adjusted the price down to half a penny a page, making it a lot more affordable. So if you haven't played with this feature yet, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Microsoft is also bringing a first-party FAQ web part into SharePoint. I think just about every intranet ever built has had some form of an FAQ on departmental pages. We now have the ability to use a new out-of-the-box feature, and this could be either sourced by manual input, or you can upload a document or point it to a SharePoint site for it to auto-generate what those frequently asked questions might be. Moving forward, the next section is around flexible sections. So we're no longer bound to the pre-built, full width, 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, 1/3 left, right columns. If you want to fine tune a section, you can now add it as a flexible section and really get in there with how you want it to render. The only word to the advise would be to make sure you test this on mobile devices, as custom sections or flex sections are not guaranteed to be great across all screens, but it's a trade-off that some will take. Editorial cards have been rolling out, and this provides you with a lot more visuals for the different calls to action and visualizations that you have available to you. So we're no longer just picking a background image, a text, and a subtext. You can now have different styles, alignments, colors, background images, things to really amplify your message. For our Mac friends, OneDrive has a new improvement where special characters could be preserved in special character ways. In particular, question marks and greater than less than signs are not allowed by Windows file systems to be there. Macs do allow it, so if you were a Mac user, every time you saved a file, you'd get the HTML encoded version with the ampersands and the hex values and so forth, making it a less than ideal experience. Now you'll be able to get the better experience. And of course, if you sync this to a library that Windows users are also syncing down to, the Windows users will see what they've seen previously, which is the HTML encoded version. Colored folders are coming to OneDrive mobile. So just like you have it on your desktop today or in the browser, well, this will now be expanded out to your mobile app as well. There's a few really cool SAM reports that are in development or in preview at the moment. These reports, we're not going to have time to dive into all of them, but in short, if you have a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license, you're now entitled to go and view and see these reports as they've rolled that SAM licensing underneath M365 Copilot. So in the old world, everybody that you needed to license SAM for everyone in your organization to be compliant. Now, as long as you have Copilot for M365, you're able to navigate here and take advantage of this. So this initial report is a really interesting one where you can enter a set of users or groups, and it will actually go ahead and give you a list of all of the SharePoint sites that these users and groups have access to. And then with a few clicks from within there, you can go and push it for an access review where the owners of those sites will get a notification, and they can come in here and then they can see who has access to what, make the changes to access directly into the portal, and then close out this review request by providing comments on whether or not everything is good or if any edits had to be made. It's a pretty cool feature. The next is an inactive site policy version 2. So the intention here is that if you have sites that are no longer active, there should be a message going out to your site owners asking if their sites are still needed or if they could be archived or recycled, deleted, etc. And if they don't respond, you can now enforce it by automatically making the sites read-only or archiving them, further reducing how many things Copilot will be looking at as it's trying to build the most grounded data for you. Real similar to that, there's a new site ownership policy where that's coming out next month, where you can define how many minimum site admins there need to be within a given site. And if for some reason the number falls below that, the remainder owners will be notified. And if they fail to take action, you can then make the sites read-only or archive them and so forth. So this is, super critical because people leave organizations, people, change roles and they're no longer involved. And this will help you keep your sites clean from an ownership perspective, which of course ties back to having the right parties at the table when you're doing those access reviews, making sure that your individuals are securing their sites the way they should be. Tied to that is also the site attestation report. And here you can define policies in terms of going and verifying that sites are labeled with the correct level of sensitivity labels, the descriptions are still accurate, and how often you want them to reattest that this is still true. Primary things is to make sure that as you're going through your sites, the purpose remains the same. And if the security level needs to be changed at the sensitivity level, at the sensitivity label, that's being done for and not just, defined once the site is created for the first time. So thanks to Turn Digital for sponsoring the user group. They keep the lights on, pay the pizza bill when we're in person, but also cover all the admin overhead costs of running the group. So with that being said, we come to our main event. I'm going to pass the mic over to Stacy, who is joining us to talk about Copilot Readiness. So Stacy, over to you.
All right, let me switch over here and let me know if you can see. Can we see? All right, perfect. All right. So, as he said, I'm going to be talking about Copilot readiness today. Oops, where is, oh, there's my mouse. There we go. So my name is Stacy Deer. I have worked in SharePoint, since day one. It wasn't even called SharePoint when I started. So that's been a long time. Clearly, I'm a technology lover. I'm a speaker and I'm a dog mom. I am the owner and enterprise solutions architect for a company called Focal Point Solutions. We're based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, but we essentially we're everywhere. Everybody just, we all work from home since day one. The company's 13 years old. Um, you can reach me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I will more on LinkedIn than I am Twitter these days, just because I don't know. Twitter's weird now. Twitter's weird. So I'm out on LinkedIn more than anything. I am also a Microsoft MVP, Office and Apps MVP, hoping to be renewed next. I think it's next month. We find out. Um, and I have a certificate for Microsoft 365 Copilot for Leaders from Vanderbilt University, and working on my what do you call it? Prompt engineering one right now. So, which is a lot of fun. And let's see. And these are my puppies. Got Khaleesi, Yoda, Apollo, and Zeus. So they keep me rather busy. So there you go. Aren't they cute? All right. So today we're going to talk about the different co-pilots, Copilot readiness, licensing, some licensing network assessment stuff, learning, because that training and everything is really, really important when it comes to comes to Copilot, and a Copilot Center of Excellence. We're going to talk about that as well. So we will have a lot to talk about. So we're going to start off with the different types of copilots and essentially what Copilot is doing within these applications. So for Microsoft Word, you're really able to summarize, what it has been written in Word, and ask it questions. But also then you inputting data, you can build draft and have it refined, ask it to reword things for you, all that kind of stuff. You should be really good in grammar if you're using Copilot. Let's just say that. On the Excel side, it's really you're analyzing the data that's in there, making things very visual for you. And as you notice through the different actual copilots, they do different things, but some do very similar things. Like PowerPoint does the same thing that Word does. It's summarizing, asking questions about what is in there, what's next steps, what are risks, or anything like that. That depends on the information on there, and also drafting and refining. Outlook is just a summarizing of the different emails and stuff in there, and helping you write your emails. I know that someone that's even on this call loves to use the Copilot inside of email, just to get the wording right, all that kind of stuff. Kind of new to everything, and she's really grown into really using Outlook because she's using Copilot. So it's been really nice to see her kind of grow from not really using the email and Outlook stuff to now using Copilot and doing all these great things. So it's been really cool to see. Microsoft Teams, you have M365 chat. I do have to say, out of all the Copilots, Teams is my favorite. One-on-one or group chats, and then meetings as well. So we will talk more about the team stuff, but yeah, it's one of my favorite co-pilots of all of them. Okay. You also have OneNote, so you can ideate on in that and actually summarize and ask questions as well. I do have to say, not my favorite out of all of them. I'm hoping, through the time it'll get a little bit better, but it's not one of my favorite right now. Same thing with Whiteboard. You can ideate, you can organize and categorize things, which is pretty cool, and then also summarize. You have Loop, which is kind of the create and refine, along with you doing a lot of brainstorming. Now I find that one pretty cool to have I call it having an extra brain to kind of help me out. And then you've got Copilot Chat, and, with the work assistant, summarizing, brainstorm, and ideate. Now, I'm going to ask a question, and you guys are going to have to tell me who answers it correctly first in the chat. And whoever answers it correctly first in chat will win a $25 gift card. Are we ready? Someone's going to have to tell me we're ready.
Let's do it.
All right. How many co-pilots are out there? How many co-pilots exist?
Paul says 8. Dave says 42. Mike says 57. Tony says infinity. Kevin says 23.
Kevin
Paul
says
says
20.
too many.
I like too many, but you guys are saying an awful lot.
John said 24.
24. What's the lowest so far?
3.14.
3.14. I like that one. All right. Any last guesses before I show you? All right, we're going to do it. Whoever was closest. So there's actually 11. So there's 11 out there. The ones that they're called, so the Copilot types, and then they provide the primary use and then the platform that they are used in. So you have Microsoft 365 Copilot. You also have Windows Copilot. I don't know if anybody has bought a new laptop recently or any new system, but it was I don't know if it was funny or ironic or what it was, because I was very sad. I was working on my laptop and all of a sudden it died, and it had some periodic issues, but it died, and so I had to order a new computer, and lo and behold, I got the new Windows 11 with Copilot, so which is quite interesting. A lot of Copilot all over my computer right now. There is Edge Copilot, GitHub Copilot, Security Copilot, which I kind of like the Security Copilot, I have to admit, but I do love security. Sales Copilot, Service, Finance, Supply Chain, Copilot Studio, and then Power Platform Studio. So lots of different Copilots out there. It is very interesting, like especially in Microsoft 365, that there are so many different Copilots, but it's kind of like they all work together because they're all in Microsoft 365. So it's very interesting, but it's also very hard to keep track of which one does what, and all that. And that's where the users come in with the user engagement, user adoption. If we're not working with them, it could be very cumbersome for them. They could get very frustrated because we've had people that we've worked with that they're doing something in Word and they've learned how to use Copilot in Word, and they think that because Excel is part of the Office bundle, that she can ask and do the same things in Excel, and it doesn't do that. So learning what you can do in each one of them is very important. So, and then we come down to, the readiness side of this, because we have to make sure, that not only is the system secure, and we're providing the right information to the system, but we also have to make sure that we're thinking about our users during this whole thing. We run into too many instances, and even Microsoft, where there's this new fun toy and everybody just turns it on, and then, we all know what happens in those instances. Just like, everybody could create a group site because Microsoft turned it on by default. All these, all these companies had all these sites all of a sudden because people didn't know what they were doing. So, we got to go through and it's like, let's just do just enough, ensure proper security, secure our content through Purview, and we got to deal with licensing as well. As always, we got to deal with licensing. I'm not saying you have to understand licensing, but you got to know somebody that understands licensing. You don't want to over license. We run into many times where people have purchased an E5 or an E3 that was way out of, the ballpark of what they were doing. So they were paying extra money on certain licenses where they didn't really need it and they could have used that money elsewhere. So if you are uncertain about your licensing, which many people are, I've seen here recently, I was on a tenant and they had almost every licensing option you could think of. And they did very little, with SharePoint, with, their security. They were doing the bare basics and everything. So it's okay to ask, do a licensing review. And I suggest you do one on at least a yearly basis, just to, sure up what you got, make sure you're not paying more than you need to. So these are all things we got to do to, be ready to get our content ready. So when we do Copilot, when we go into a company, there are a lot of things that we want to do, and we want to make sure that are ready for Copilot. So you will want to review the Microsoft 365 apps that you have, what ones you are going to use Copilot with. You want to review your OneDrive. We use this stuff everywhere, right? Teams, we're going to review that. Loop, kind of see how you're using it, if you're using it, all those things, because there's things that you can do to tweak, of course, security. And there's ways to turn off add-ins. So we had an instance where a company, they turned on Copilot. They didn't do any Copilot readiness. They didn't do check anything. They just turned it on. So when they turned it on, all of a sudden, then passwords were being, coming up in search because they kept their passwords and other information in OneNote. Which, others have done in the past. I say that in the past because we used to do it, so that's in the past now. But they were getting that through OneDrive. So what they wanted to do at that point was disable Copilot from producing the information from OneDrive. So there is actually a way, but Microsoft calls them add-ins. So we had to disable that add-in, and they were, so no longer it was pulling that information. So, really looking at where your content is, what content you want to share, content you don't want to share, and making sure that you're making the right decisions so people don't see confidential information. So we already talked a little bit about the licensing requirements. You have to have an E3, E5, Business Standard, Business Premium, and then you also have the A3 and A5s. So as you notice, it's not in GCC. So I always get asked when that's coming. I have no idea. So if ever, update channel, no semi-annual, current monthly preview channels only, network requirements. That's kind of a big one, especially if, you're setting your Copilot up and you can go outside. We've had some clients that started having, slowness, some degradation in their network because it was a new toy. Honestly, was the problem. It was a new toy. People were trying it out, and they would see degradation and issues around that. Once the newness wore off, it really wasn't a problem for them. So they just kind of gave it some time in their instance. But some companies, depending on the size, how their networks are built, and all that kind of stuff, there could be some serious problems with them. We also run the Microsoft Syntax assessment tool. So when Syntax originally came out, they provided some scripts with that would go into the system. So you run it through PowerShell, and it would actually pull reports on metadata and content types and all that kind of stuff within the system that you could utilize to help, configuring, syntax and the learning tool to apply manage metadata. Just gave you a whole lot of information around that. So that is information we still want when we're preparing to turn on Copilot. What, are there content types out there? Are there things that are marked as confidential or security, all these types of things? Is there content that is not tagged with metadata that should be tagged with metadata? So it kind of helps you look through all of that. Security, of course, is one of the biggest ones. Doing the, securing collaboration for teams and security as a whole. Some of the things that, we run into when we're doing the readiness assessments out there is around permissions. And when we start looking at permissions and, depending on tools that you have, so like if you have ShareGate, you can run, some set of reports and all these kinds of things around security. We have found, and I know it's, maybe Dave and Dimitri have some feedback on it, the sharing option within a document library and list, where you have copy link and then you have the share option, and the lack of understanding from the end user what those mean. Copy link means you already have access to that area and you're just being you're being nice and you're saying, hey, here's the link of the document I just updated, just to kind of, save them time or whatever. Or you're putting it into an email and that type of stuff. To where the share link is actually breaking permissions on that document, causing the limited access, and all those types of things, which show up in these reports and nobody knows where they come from. They're very confused by those. And realistically, it's just a training issue, but it is a big training issue to get cleaned up. So we have had clients that have asked us to hide that option, which we have done so that they cannot use that share option, because there's been instances where things are being seen that they shouldn't be. Of course, we want to make sure that, like, the goal is minimum user permissions to the data. You don't want to over permission anybody. So you want to make sure that, if this is what they need, then you stop there. It just makes things a lot easier. If you over permission, then they can see more than they really should, and that just things get a little bit crazy. And especially if they don't know, there's a lot of, someone says, hey, I need permission to this, and people will just do it. So there's, having that understanding of asking the right questions, and stuff like that to ensure that, permissions are given to who they need to. You also need to do, review your data in general. Review privacy and security for Copilot and M365, their MIP, your DLP, run auditing reports, your retention, customer lockbox, customer key, e-discovery, data classification, etc. You want to review all these things and identify, how turning on Copilot is going to affect those, what you need to do to enhance or update these areas to make sure that they are secure, or what you want to show and not show within Copilot. Device management and protection. This comes down to what are you going to allow your users to do? We've all heard, through the years, you can bring your own device to work. Well, that's great. But when it goes to Copilot and the benefits that Copilot has, and the information that you can gather when you're using Copilot, do you want to have someone who they have their own phone, you're not using Intune and it's not being managed, and they've got Copilot on it and they're pulling up all this stuff, right? So I have seen more than my share at this point, that anytime you start talking about Copilot, you start thinking about those phones. It's been the biggest thing around Copilot, because they want to make sure that the phones are secure. Also tablets that some companies are utilizing, but you see more now that the auditing of those phones are taking place. Intune is being put in there. They're putting securing policies, managing those phones, all that kind of stuff. So that is a big one for me, because Copilot, the type of data that you can pull up in Copilot. Um, app protection policies, threat protection, that's keeping up with, all of your settings and security defender, checking all of those, making sure that you have everything possible that you need to configure. But the biggest thing with all of these, even though like when you go do essentially this assessment, this readiness assessment, and you're pulling all this information and analyzing it to find out what you have and what you don't have to find out if you're ready or not. Most companies, I can tell you right now, when they run the assessment and go through these, that they're not ready. They have a lot of things that pop up, that need to be configured and such. Which is okay. I mean, you're calling the attention to it so that you can take care of it, which is great. But the thing to keep in mind, even though you do a readiness assessment, you fix everything, and then you're up and you're running. The thing is you're not always going to be up to date. As we know, and Dimitri just showed us, there's a bunch of new updates that were applied, and he just went through a bunch of them. There are, with many of those that he was showing with reporting and all that stuff, that means that in your admin center, there have been changes, things to support those various things. And you always have new security updates. It seems like on a quarterly basis, you will get more, updates. And then, but every month, technically, you get updates as well. So I would suggest is doing, putting in a procedure where you're doing quarterly maintenance on your tenant, to ensure that all of the updates that Microsoft is pushing down to the tenant, that you have no option to stop. So they're going to push it down there, that you're going in, or someone within your company is going in and making sure that those new features and functionality are handled, and the configurations that are required from the new ones are done. Okay, so it is always, just the vicious cycle of updating and keeping things updated, because it could be any matter of time that something gets pushed out that could cause an issue. I mean, we've all seen it through the years, and it's unfortunate, but we all are human and mistakes happen. So we got to make sure that we're configuring those things. So a little bit more about licensing is, we talked about E3, E5, business standard, business premium, and then of course the education. And Microsoft is an add-on for this. So unfortunately, it's not, mixed in there. It is additional cost. I can't remember the last cost I heard. Like, anybody remember what it was for like one user license? Is it like 140 or something like that? Last I heard, like that. So it's not cheap, right? So if you're going to really, if your company's really going to buy in, you want to make sure, because it's not a cheap license whatsoever. And so you want to train your users. It's even more reason to train your users, okay? Some things that the users must have. They must have a deployment of Microsoft 365 apps. Users must have, Microsoft, where'd it go? I hit the wrong button. There we go. Microsoft Entra ID, active OneDrive account for features like file storage and sharing. This is called a little bit of a problem. Zeus, shh. Because we actually had a client that they did not use OneDrive because they used Box. And so they had, actually, hold on. Zeus, shh. Get up here. Come here. Get up here. Come here. Don't know what he saw. So we, having to enable OneDrive so that they can do that. So for companies, and it's unfortunate because, you do have options. Naturally you wouldn't have to use OneDrive. You could continue to use Box. Companies make that decision, especially if they have a lot of data in there and all that kind of stuff. So, Copilot forces the usage of OneDrive, unfortunately. You also have to have access to Microsoft Teams, Outlook, and other relevant M365 apps. Yoda, shh. All right. Network requirements. You must allow Microsoft 365 endpoints, permit additional domains. There are a number of domains here that you have to add. So they're just standard Microsoft 365 domains, but they're Copilot initiated. So like at copilot.microsoft.com, bing.com, all these fun things. You must support WebSocket connections. So many of the Copilot integrations rely on the WebSockets to deliver the user experience piece of this. And then the blocking of the WSS protocol at the network perimeter, network devices, performing TLS, and proxy servers enforcing aggressive connection timeouts. So a lot of people tell me when they're doing their Copilot configuration, some of the network stuff is the hardest for them to get configured. I'm not exactly sure why, because I'm not a like a network person. But from my understanding, it seems to be the biggest thing and biggest one that they have issues with. All right. Assessment tool. So the Microsoft syntax we talked about. So it'll pull all those libraries with custom columns, column usage, libraries with custom content types, content type usage, libraries with retention labels. It'll tell you the library size, library modernization status, pre-built model candidates, syntax, model usage, and an assessment overview. Now, all of these things are produced from the PowerShell stuff that is provided for this. The asset tool for syntax is still out there because many people have started using it for the readiness of this. So if you go out and you can't find it, let me know. I actually have it stored. And I actually have a document that kind of talks about how to configure it and run it a little bit better than the documentation that came with it. So you can let me know on that and I can provide it. But this will provide a lot of information on things that you want to share, you don't want to share. Just really help you plan that out a lot better. App protection policies. So data protection policies, you want to restrict data transfer, block screenshots or recordings, and enforce encryption. Now, I can tell you that many conversations with clients, we're telling them with blocking the screenshots or recording, enforcing encryption, there's a lot of things that we're telling them that you really need to do for Copilot to be safe and secure. And there's a lot of pushback on it from many companies. They don't want to do certain things, but you have to have, talk to them and not only then, maybe even escalate, because there's just some people that don't understand that if you don't do these things, bad things can happen within the organization. And you don't want to, be in that situation where like, oh, we're going to, accept that risk. And as soon as, something happens, they're hacked or whatever, then it becomes a bigger issue than it should have been. So of course, multi-factor authentication, conditional access policies, role-based conditional access policies, compliance-driven policies, so data retention, data classification and labeling, and audit and monitoring. I really like the fact that Copilot enforces or pushes you towards the retention and the security, the labeling and the policies. Because some people, they talk about doing it for a very long time and then they don't. So, but then they get very interested in Copilot and then they're forced to do it. So I love the fact that that is something that is being forced within this. Preventing data misuse, limiting file downloads, clipboard restrictions, and of course, data sharing. You want to be able to protect all those. Mobile device management, we talked a little bit about that, with app wrapping, app configuration, And as always, anything that you put into M365, any application or anything, you should have governance. So there's very specific AI governance out there, content filtering, usage analytics, output retention, many other things I could say when it comes to governance that, people should be adhering to and putting in their governance document and all those things. Incident response policies, automated incident reporting, session timeouts, and rapid access revocation. Um, just lots and lots of configurations around Copilot. So with the conditional access policies, you do a lot of threat protection with those. So you're going to restrict access based on risk, device compliance enforcement. So like, we go back to the phones and tablets and whatnot. Location restrictions. If you're an organization that does no work out of the US and Canada, you actually can configure that so that, if anything other than US and Canada are in the mix, they are restricted, they cannot use it. Many companies do this and then have built-in processes so they can fill out literally like a Microsoft form or a Power App, and they automated that process. So if someone goes on vacation and they're going to be outside, the area that they have configured, they can go into the exception for a certain period of time. So, which, you have things that you can do to automate to help make those things better and easier from the user standpoint, even though you are making things stricter for them. Multi-factor authentication definitely require for all users accessing Copilot. Enforce additional authentication challenges for high-risk users identified through Defender. Safe links and safe attachments. You want to make sure these are enabled. That literally just make sure those things are enabled. Data loss protection, blocking of the sharing of sensitive data. These are things, that's why, like, the big thing when people just go turn it on and start using it and they have not protected any of their confidential data, it just blows my mind. Restrict external sharing. And then, of course, on endpoint protection, use Defender for endpoint. There are external things that people use instead of Defender. Those will work, if they're configured properly and whatnot. But of course, Defender is built in and would be the best integration piece for it. And also prevent unmanaged device access. So some other threat protection is the analytics and monitoring. So you want to monitor your Copilot usage. You want to set up alerts. So you want to be alerted as soon as something is happening. If you're waiting for your alerts, something could already happen. So you want to make sure that, the alerts are kept up on, someone is being emailed or, whatever you put into place for those alerts. Identity protection policies. You want to enable your risk-based condition access. Enforce password policies, which is very interesting because in one of the actual security things, it tells you to, not to, enforce passwords, to changing of passwords. So this one now using Copilot says enforce password policies. So, kind of got to work together on that one, but anti-malware and anti-phishing policies. So you want to make sure you have those. Privileged access management, limit your admin access. I don't know how many times I walk into a company that we're doing a assessment of their environment and they have like 8, 9, 10, admins in there. And then you say, oh, so you can help me with Exchange. And they're like, no, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, well, why do you have access to everything then? Oh, because it's just easy, right? That's not a good answer. So, Microsoft has provided the different roles for a reason, and you really should use those roles. I know that, it could be easier that way, but it's not safe that way. Log administrative actions. That is very key as well. I've had to actually use that. And audit and logging policies. So enable audit logging, of course. And then, of course, you want to monitor admin and guest actions within the environment. AI-specific threat controls. So you can set monitoring policies and restrict AI functionality in high security environments. Security and awareness training. So you've heard me talk about training already with your users, using sensitive data, in emails and handling and reporting suspicious activity, all that kind of stuff. I love companies that do, and I'm gonna be honest with one of them, but one of my partners that we work with, they do on a monthly basis where an email goes out, and it's tweaked somehow. And if they click on it, then they have to go do a training. So I have to admit, I click on that email almost every single month. It's not because I don't understand that I need to read them very closely. My only excuse, and it's just an excuse, I need to get over it, is the fact that I try to get through my emails as fast as possible because I get like 800 and some a day. And so I just click and try to scan through emails, and I get busted every single time. So that is not a good excuse, but I'm being honest. I do do that. Um, but I need to be more cautious of that because one day it may not be a test, and I hurt the company by selecting that. So we need to train our users, and as an admin, I need to get better. So there you go. I admitted my fault. So conduct regular security training that includes scenarios involving Copilot misuse. Again, there's many systems out there that have built-in training where, each quarter you have a training that you must do. Some of them that I've seen last anywhere from 9 minutes to 15 minutes, and you just watch the videos, answer some questions, and complete the training. And you're learning something each month around security to help you and help the company be protected. So I love those kinds of tools. So there's many of them out there that you could utilize to help with that. And then incident response policies, enabling automated incident responses, and implement a Copilot specific response plan. Okay. Prompting. So Copilot prompting is one of my favorite things. I love Copilot prompting. That's why I'm doing a prompt engineering class. So essentially, when you're prompting in Copilot, you want to explain to Copilot what you need. You want to include all the right things. They say include the right ingredients. You want to ask questions or ask them questions, or that you want to ask them to ask you questions, and you want to collaborate. When I am working with Copilot and I'm trying to get a very, very specific information, I always start thinking in my head, I need to collaborate with Copilot like it's a human almost. Think of when everybody goes, you have a sounding board, same thing, right? So in here, like the example that it has is generate a 3 to 5 bullet points. So that's the goal. And then it says, the context. I need these bullet points to prepare me for a meeting with client X to discuss their phase 3 brand campaign. So that's the context of it. And then you want the source. So focus on email and Teams chats since June. So they go grab that information from, email and Teams. And then the expectations. Please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. So those are the expectations of this. So that's write it with all those, make it very easy. So the other thing that I like to do, regardless if I think that I have provided all the information to get the answers that I need, I will always say, if I have missed something or you have any questions for clarification, let me know. And Copilot will come back and ask me a couple more questions, or if I have given it enough information, it just starts providing the information that I requested. But I literally say, ask me questions, especially when I'm writing, when I'm writing something like an email or a blog or something like that, and I'm looking for something, I'm using Copilot, I will say, ask me questions. And like the information gets better when you do that. So it's like going back and forth with somebody and generating, conversation and stuff like that. We've all done it at, various events. We're sitting there talking about something new, and we talk about it, and then someone thinks of something new to enhance it, and it just grows. You can do the same thing if you're working through the prompting. Okay, so got a little demo. So, and I told you that Teams was my favorite. There's my Yoda. All right. So in Teams, you have Copilot. And one of the things that I love, so notice up here we have the work in the web. So when I talked about network requirements, that's when it can get a little crazy if you're using the web and you have a lot of people actually utilizing it. So the one thing that I do love about Teams is it automatically gives you some prompts that you can start with. So you can, prepare for a meeting, staying informed, tracking tasks, those types of things, get an overview of something. So what I love the most is that, like I said, I get about 800 emails a day. I have a number of employees. I'm involved in 19 projects, and sometimes it's like, okay, I need to summarize what the information I have on this because it's been a crazy day. So I always love to, come in here and I say, summarize messages from Tana on projects from the day. So it can actually go out to like email. It'll, pull things from email that we have done. It will actually pull things that we have talked about via chat. It will bring it in. And notice here, it'll talk about the documents that we used. And you can actually like Tana in chat. So tell me about the conversation. Like Nest, provide, actually I'll summarize communications with Ryan Love today. So maybe I haven't seen Ryan all day. He's been busy in meetings, lots of things going on, and I can actually get an update of all the projects and tasks that we were working on. But that was throughout the day, and just giving me a nice little summary of that. So I don't have to go back and ask him, like, hey, what was the whole thing about, Toyota? Or, the purview stuff that we talked about. I can come in here and do that. The other thing, I can ask it if I were a meeting, so I can actually ask it, to summarize a meeting that I even had, like, hey, tell me what the next steps were. Summarize, bullet point out, the highlights of it. So you can do a lot of things around that. The other thing, especially when you're working with emails, is I love the persona pieces of it. I actually wear multiple hats within the organization. So I own the company. I'm an enterprise solutions architect. I PM, so I project manage, and sometimes I'm a junior solutions architect because I'm doing migrations to help out or whatever. So, I wear many hats. So when I am working, with Copilot, I have the opportunity because I've always struggled with this. Like, okay, I don't want to be too high level. I don't want to be too layman's terms, with who I'm speaking with. But, so sometimes I really struggled with that. So one of the things that I absolutely love about Copilot is that I can say, I am a owner of a company and I need to write an email. Oh my God, I can't even type today. Write an email to the owner of another company and explain to them during the assessment my team completed in your tenant that you are severely at risk. So, just kind of giving a general type of information. I could type all kinds of stuff out there, and I'm just going to hit this. So what it's going to do is going to help me, talk owner to owner. It's going to help me, write an email from owner to owner, and, it's going to be very professional, and all that. So it's, notice here, it's, subject, urgent security risks identified during tenant assessment, and it's very professional. It's, it tells high level, essentially, like you got a low secure score, you have incomplete security actions, your guest user management isn't well, and conditional access policies, you're missing things there. It's just very, very professional. And then I could write one from, if I said, an admin to an admin, it gets what I call very geeky. It dives into the weeds, but that other IT person is going to understand it because of how it's written. So that is like one of my biggest things that I love about it is using the personas. Um, you should try it if you haven't tried it. I think it was a game changer for me using Copilot to summarize meetings and my day and finding information has just been huge. I can tell you by just the few things that I've shown you here, I've saved myself so much time during the day that I don't have to go search my emails anymore. With I need to find one thing, I don't have to go and ask somebody is like, hey, what did we, talk about earlier? When we were chatting, I don't have to do all those things anymore. I can literally go here and get the information I need. I don't have to spend, a long time trying to write the perfect email to the perfect person. I can, put my thoughts and everything into here. I have an employee that literally at times when he's trying to explain that he needs to write an email to somebody to explain something, literally has taken him 2 hours to write an email. It's my biggest pet peeve. Like 2 hours, 2 hours. That's hard to bill a client because you couldn't write the email because you weren't sure what to say, right? Now he uses Copilot. He puts the information in there. We showed him, how to do the personas. He actually, took one of the classes at Vanderbilt kind of thing. And now his emails and everything no longer take him 2 hours, right? So, learning how to do the prompting and stuff like that is just absolutely, it's going to save you so much time. So next we're going to talk about company rollout. All right. So rolling out Copilot. So one of the thing, and I think it's always like with any new application within an organization, you want to choose some champions. So people that are very interested in what you're deploying. So in this case, Copilot. Most companies have not had a problem finding champions because so many people were excited about it. You want to include strategic roles within it. The biggest thing, and I know it's weird, but actually executive buy-in for the most of the ones that we have worked with to this point were very easy to get executive buy-in because they saw the benefit of Copilot, how it could help. But they're also smart and being hey, but we need this, this, and this before we do that. Meaning doing the readiness, making sure they're secure, they've got the proper licensing, they're showing the proper data. So they've done their research because they really want to get involved and get ahead of the game or stay up with the game with using Copilot. Manageable pieces. So this is a big one, where a lot of people they kind of miss this. Um, have you ever heard the comment, too big of a bite, too much to chew at one time? So that is kind of the thing here. If you just go out and you turn on Copilot and you just say, here you go, right? So now your users have how many Copilots? We've already talked about that, right? So a ton of Copilots out there, and they're going to be like they're going to focus on one. They're going to find one that they like and they're going to focus on it. And because they're not going to understand all of them, it's just too much. So you can roll it out in pieces. So like if you just wanted to roll out Teams first, get them used to Teams, which is in my preference with a lot of organizations, rolling out Teams first has been very successful, and then following along with the others. Giving them that time to really learn, the first piece of the rollout, and then your second and third, and just do them in nice little pieces and chunks, so that they really are, the users are learning. Admins are keeping up with any of the fixes and updates and all that stuff that they have to make. If there's network issues, you're gradually doing it, managing it for the network pieces as well. And of course, training for this. This to me, Copilot, needs training. You need to stay up on the training as well. But this is one thing that I don't think that you can skip if you deploy Copilot within your organization, because if you do not train them properly, just like I showed when I came in here, the whole web versus company, right? So some organizations, this goes to the configuration piece of making sure, doing the smaller pieces so you don't forget things during the configuration. Do you want to allow your users to search externally in Copilot, or do you want them only to be able to search internally with Copilot? So that's a big piece of it. But also, if you're allowing both, explaining, which one that they would use when and where. The prompting is huge. There's a lot of, in Teams, they show some examples of prompting and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of, what do you call them, like training cards and whatnot of different, to get people, the bunch of different prompts that they can start to use to build their library, their dictionary of the prompts that they can utilize to help increase their day-to-day work. Once you start, have those champions getting there, and a lot of times I really like champions that are also trainers, because it really, I think, helps boost that quite a bit, around all those kind of things. But training is very important. Otherwise, you go and push them out there and you just say, have at it. Your user adoption is not going to be where you think it is. People are going to get frustrated, because not every Copilot is the same. You can't do the same thing in them. They're going to think that they do, and they're going to be very frustrated. And also, if you do not teach them how to use prompting, and they just walk in there and they ask a question, like, my team loves to be funny, and, every now and then they'll say, hey, I asked, like, they've named their co-pilots. So, some of the guys have named their co-pilot a woman's name, and they said, ask them, hey, do I look good today? And then it tells them that they can't answer that question, and then gives honestly, sometimes it gives a smart aleck comment back, which I absolutely love. But you can get very frustrated if you don't know how to work with Copilot. So it is very much a collaboration.
Stacy,
So
we have a few
yeah,
questions in the chat.
sure.
So we have a question from James, asking, what has been the impact of Copilot on knowledge-based article creation, both internally and with your clients?
So knowledge base creation, the speed of them has increased. Which is always, kind of wonderful, but you see the speed of them being increased, and actually they don't take as long to build, which is also great. There's always been a lot of frustration on building, knowledge-based articles and all that kind of stuff. But with using Copilot to help, one, the grammar's gotten better, they're faster to get out and get reviewed. It has had a huge impact on getting that type of stuff done. So.
Great. And then Deb asks, do you mean you mean turn on Copilot the same way they gave folks SharePoint?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah.
And then one more question from James. Is there a way to turn off the Copilot prompt in Excel?
Yes, you can turn off the, so do you still want to use Copilot in Excel or just turn it completely off?
James, feel free to come off of me. It might be easier. In the chat, James put no turn off. Like
No
really
turn
off.
off? He doesn't
I think he wants it off completely.
He does? Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing? Okay. So inside the admin panel administration, there's an add-on. So and one of them is Excel. So you can actually turn it off. Now, I do know that they moved where it originally was, but if you do a quick search, you'll find you'll find where they've located it, but they call them add-ons in there. So Excel is an add-on for Copilot, and you can disable it. Any other questions?
I think we're good. Thanks, Stacey.
Okay. All right. So one of the big things, and I don't know if anybody's seen this, I know a few people have because I'm a big proponent of this. A while ago, Microsoft put out something called Learning Pathways, and it had built in, getting started with, with Teams and Microsoft 365 as a whole and all this kind of stuff. So what I suggest is that now that you're, working on Copilot, adding Copilot to that mix. If you're already using the learning pathways for the Microsoft 365 stuff, just enter it in, right? So essentially here, this is the learning pathways site, and we've added additional training things to it. Like we have like 50 to 60 different videos between SharePoint, OneDrive lists and forms, Power Automate kind of stuff. But they have built-in information, and our suggestion is, since you've already got this, build the Copilot pieces into this. So Microsoft has the M3, like an M365 training area here, and it goes and it shows you all the different applications in here, and you can get additional training on them. Copilot is not in here because Copilot was not out when this came out, but you can add Copilot here, add the pages of, you can go out into the Microsoft, forum, or not forums, but the training, learning centers and stuff like that, and find the information that you want to bring in to help train your users and just add it on to the training site that you have. They put things in here about working remotely. So if your company doesn't work remotely anymore or split, I mean, you could keep it up there if you do, but if not, you could turn this into a Copilot link or just rearrange these all together. The other things that we do just to really help users is we have, we work a lot with Orchestry, and they had something that I absolutely loved, which was an acronym dictionary. So in that acronym dictionary, not only, just the normal, how do what is a mention and different acronyms and definitions of, M365 terminology and stuff like that, also add in Copilot into this. So as new apps and stuff like that come out, you can add that information into here, so you can continue to grow this dictionary and the acronyms out there. So that's a piece that I absolutely love. And then, of course, you can add in your knowledge share, your articles, and all that kind of stuff, which we use Copilot to generate and put those out there. It's just using what Microsoft has already provided us. Now, the Learning Pathways site now is no longer bundled through Microsoft. It's actually on GitHub now to where you need to get it. If anybody wants it and they can't find it, let me know, and I can let you know where that is at. So it does deploy differently now than it used to. So it's all PowerShell now. And then, like I said, we just added these pieces in for different pieces of training, and we just did the, it looks like your different little things here, but we have a number of different videos out there. So you can just add your Copilot stuff out here, so kind of keep it in one place. So it helps your users with the training and all of that. And then go back here. And well, actually, it talked about the Center of Excellence there. We'll actually look at that. So the other thing that Microsoft has provided is the Center of Excellence for Copilot. Now, it was done a little bit differently. Let me pull this down and get that out of here. And Microsoft essentially created a PowerPoint, and they're saying, here's all these things that you should implement into a site for a SharePoint excellence site. So they gave you where you could download lists and document library type of information, and they supply it to you. So then you can place it in here into a site. So then you can grow your site as well. So notice in this one, we have the acronyms and terms dictionary, of course, around Copilot, Copilot best practices. They supplied some information. We added different information here. So like prompting best practices, it's, has information. So it just kept, but it's really built around, Microsoft built this, PowerPoint, and then it gave us these different lists of things like around the success kit, readiness planning information out here. The one thing that when you read about it, about the Center of Excellence, one of the things that it really drove home was make it interactive with the users so that users are doing things within here. Like one of the things that they said was like, do, like surveys or polls asking questions about, how we're implementing Copilot. Is it working for you? Is it easy? Are you getting the training you need? A lot of different things like that. So it's making it really interactive so that they can fix the Copilot if they're making mistakes because, they're getting feedback that they are, that it's interactive to the users and you're getting what you need to make sure that it's better. You can fix it. So it just supplies a bunch of information, and then you build your own as well. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it, but that was essentially the Center of Excellence. And I also have the information about, where from the PowerPoint and the stuff that Microsoft provided for the site. So if you cannot find that, let me know and I can help you out with that as well. All right. And then, so you have responsible AI principles. There will also be a question on this one that you will win a $25 Amazon gift card if you get it correct. So we will have another where Dimitri and everybody will have to help me out. But these are some responsible AI principles that Microsoft put out. Okay. So Microsoft, says an AI system includes not only the technology, but also the people who use it, the people affected by it, and the environment in which it's deployed, right? So, you got to be responsible, you got to be fair, you got to be reliable, and safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. These were the core things that Microsoft said were very important to be responsible with AI. So this is a great starting point for an organization of building your responsible AI principles. So this is great, but what is it missing? For it to be completely useful for you in your organization, what is missing? Anybody?
Deb says training.
Training? No.
Mike says compliance. Dave said licenses.
Nope. I mean, kinda, but you look at it at a bigger picture.
Paul says adaptability.
So I'm going to say a sentence, okay? This is Microsoft's responsible AI principles. What's missing? This is Microsoft's. It's not.
Paul says generality to other platforms.
I'm about ready to give it away. This is Microsoft's AI policies for it to work in your organization.
Mike says liability. John says your company's policies.
Yes, John. Yes, yes. That's what I was saying. This is Microsoft's core. They gave you this so that you could take this and then build it into your company's AI principles to make it yours. Okay. So they give you a starting point and then you have to put in your own because Microsoft is not going to know, as we know, Microsoft builds things for all different types of companies. You have to go in and configure it to fit your organization. They've done the same thing with many of these types of documents, and the AI principles was one of them. They're like this is like the core. Now you got to go add your company's specialized AI principles in here to make it the whole thing. Okay. So John, $25 Amazon gift card. Woohoo. All right. Mobile, we've talked a lot about mobile. So allow access on the go. Any of the company, anybody in here work for a company that does not allow mobile? Hmm. Are any of you guys using Intune? You, maybe? Yeah. So if you're going to go Copilot, it is literally hands down, you need to implement Intune to manage your phones and other devices, iPads, etc. Okay. Um, you want to be able to configure access in the, different channels, Copilot mobile application. I can see like when I, initially was started playing with the Copilot mobile stuff that I was like, wow, if I lost my phone or I did this, and it really got me kind of concerned. And then I think about my clients who that are not, I'm going to say they're not responsible and they have not listened to recommendations at this point, and it worries me. So then I will do things like I'll write a blog or something like that, and then I'll share with the clients, or during their quarterly maintenance, I'll add in tidbits for them. Eventually, they kind of get the point. But mobile is one of those. It can be a very dangerous situation with the information that is on your phone. So definitely, for me, if you're going to go Copilot, you definitely need to manage your devices. All right, so here's a fun thing. Is Copilot worth more than a free lunch? Okay, now this was done a little ways back, but I found it funny. So if offered the choice, users overwhelmingly said they would pick Copilot over a free lunch. So the first one is they did it by month, right? So 12% said I'd rather have lunch than Copilot. If it was a bi-weekly lunch, only 21% of people said they wanted lunch over Copilot. And if it was a weekly lunch, 23% of the people said that they would, 23% said lunch over Copilot. So the impact, I think, in the excitement, I feel like the excitement was the biggest thing when this came out. The excitement of, using AI and Copilot and all those types of things was, really big out there. So people were like, yeah, I'd rather have Copilot because, my company won't let me have it, so I want it, type of scenario. So I found it very funny, and me and a couple other Microsoft MVPs found this, and we're like, we're putting it in our presentations because it's really funny. But yeah, people rather have Copilot than that. So on that note, thank you guys very much for listening to me ramble about readiness on Copilot. I hope that you gained some, important information from it, and thank you. Any questions?
If anyone has any questions for Stacy, feel free to come off of mute.
Please, can you share the explicit don'ts for prompting? Do you want me to bring it up so you can screenshot it? Yeah, okay. Gotta
Stacy,
find out where.
I stole your
Yes.
screen share, so you have to reshare as well.
What was that under? I can't remember. Best practices, duh. Okay. The don'ts. Okay. Okay. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay. So that's I'd say the first 7. Let me know when you got that picture and then I'll scroll down. I still can't see the chat yet, so let me know when they're done.
No one's said anything yet. And folks, you're more than welcome to come off mute at this point. Okay, we have a thumbs up.
Don't worry about it. I just put in chat. Go ahead and scroll down.
Okay. You rock, Dave.
Thank you very much. All right.
Okay. All right.
Beautiful.
All right. Anything else out here while we're here? Nope. Okay.
All right. Well, let's give Stacy a round of applause. Stacy, thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. I'll share with you the 2 winners of your raffle
Okay.
offline.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we do have just a few closeout slides here before we call it a night. So we do have an open call for speakers. Ignore that the URL says 2024. The form has been updated for 2025. So if you're interested in coming to speak either virtually or in person, we'd love to hear from you. We do have meetings planned for the remainder of the year. We typically meet on the 3rd Thursday of each month. So the next one will be online for sure, and we'll be having office space to meet in again, potentially in July, but definitely in August onwards from there.
And we do have a speaker for next month, another Microsoft MVP, Amber Bell.
Oh, excellent. If she's confirmed, that's awesome.
Quick question. So when you guys start doing it in person, are you still going to have remote as well?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we started hybrid before the pandemic, and I think that a lot of members, that weren't able to join would join us remotely, and that really helped to keep the group alive during the pandemic because it was already, all the infrastructure and everything was already in place. So we're going to continue that. Also, Stacy, I don't know last time you've been in the Boston area, but depending on where you are in Boston, where the meeting is, it could be a solid hour and a half to get to.
Interesting. Okay.
So in terms of upcoming community events, so Collab Days New England is coming back to Burlington again this year on a Friday, just like last year. It'll be on October 17th. I'm not sure if they've opened registration for attendees yet, but their call for speakers is ending, I believe, at the end of this month. So
No, they
everyone's
extended it
registered.
to mid-June.
Yeah, it
Okay.
should get extended. But
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, to try to come up with a talk 6 months out when this product is changing so fast is gonna be hard.
True.
That's all right. I'll just pull a Johnny Carson and put the envelope on my forehead with the turban.
Yeah.
So then we also have Microsoft Ignite. So this will be in person as well as online. This year in person will be in San Francisco, and online will be free, as it was in past years. There's also the Microsoft Power Platform Conference that's taking place at the end of October over in Las Vegas. So for those interested, that should be a good event as well.
I will be submitting for New England because I love to go New England.
Nice.
Love to have you.
So in terms of other community calls, there's quite a few calls available on pnp.github.io, a few of which are just displayed here. But if you're interested, definitely come check these out. There's a nonstop shortage of great activities and resources that are available for this community. We do have neighboring user groups, which are also might be a little bit closer to where you're based geographically, whether it's in Rhode Island or New Hampshire, or interested in adjacent topics. We'll take the session to see if anyone's running into any problems within M365 where you're really just banging your head and would like to get community impact. If so, feel free to unmute yourself. And along the same lines, if you really solved any kind of super challenging problem recently that you'd like to share, we welcome that as well. I see Deb, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I got a tip for a change, right? Usually I'm
All right.
asking questions, but I actually have a tip. So I had a client who needed some HIPAA compliance set up. So they needed to be able to have their academic A5 licenses. And we were using shared Teams channels because they wanted each student to have their own Teams channel to be able to record a meeting in a room. But they needed to be able to make sure that Purview can do the logs on it. So we started testing the logs, and we weren't coming up with those. The SharePoint sites were the shared channels were not coming up and were not being picked up by the log. And it took a bit of configuring to try to figure this out. And it turns out what you need to do to be able to hit all of your shared channels or private channels is you use the URL from I'm going to call it the parent SharePoint site, from the parent team. Write the URL, but put a star at the end of it. You do that, you're going to be able to see your private channels and your shared channels coming up in your audit log. Obvious, ain't?
Yeah, very nice. Thanks for sharing, Deb. I see, Mike, you got your hand up.
I do. Since we're switching roles, I actually have a question for you guys. And Stacy, part of your presentation reminded me of this when you were talking about administrative roles. Microsoft has really gone super granular on a lot of these administrative roles. Mm-hmm. And I have a tenant where I created a policy in Purview. Actually, I didn't create it in Purview, but now it's in Purview multiple years ago. Gosh, what was it now? It was like an e-discovery search or something like that. And when I went back to it this year, I couldn't access it because it said I don't have permissions. So I did a bunch of research on, okay, what role do I need to give myself in order to give myself permissions to access this search that I created 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, the documentation was flat out wrong. It named 8 different roles that I could add to it. 6 of them did not exist in Purview. And the other 2, one I already had, the other one I added to myself, and neither of them granted me the access that I needed to either access the old existing search that I had created or create a new one for the new use case that I was there for. So do you have any tips on where Microsoft may have some clarity on that kind of crap? Because that's been driving me insane.
I wish I did, but I unfortunately have a similar story as you. When we were trying to configure some stuff in Defender, and we knew what the roles were because we used to use them, right? So we were using them,
and then they changed them.
Yeah, and then like we added them and it wouldn't work, and then we're like, so we went to go do some review to see if like roles changed or whatever. Couldn't find anything other than what we already had it set at, which clearly has changed. We got on a call with Microsoft, and they said, oh, you need this and this. I'm like, well, that's what it's been set at forever, and now that doesn't work. And then it was a couple weeks, they come back and they shared the roles, the new roles that you needed, and the 2 role names had 0 to do with what we were doing. So how it worked on these 2 roles that literally made no sense, no idea. Yeah. So
unfortunately, the new Microsoft answer, be a global admin.
You Google admin. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I wish I had a tip for that, but I get frustrated at that myself. And we literally, anytime that we run into one that we set, we document and we share with the entire team so no one has to
Mhm.
stress about it because it's that bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just to add to that, global admin is not enough to give you those
Right.
purview roles. Those are completely separate.
Oh yeah.
In addition, I would say you're absolutely right. Microsoft has changed things. If you've identified that there's been problems in their documentation, all of that documentation is actually through GitHub, so you could submit a pull request and fix it if you so choose to, and then it would get routed to Microsoft for their review. But to Stacy's point, raising the Microsoft ticket is probably the first step into getting that resolved. I can tell you from my experience, there's really two main roles that you want to consider in Purview for e-discovery. One is the compliance manager, and one is the e-discovery manager. And if you
I
have
have
both
both of those.
and you're still not seeing it in there,
Correct.
then that's definitely Microsoft ticket territory at that stage.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Actually, two questions. One, how do we deploy this Copilot Center of Excellence? Because I don't see that in the admin portal or as a template.
So it's not a template. Microsoft did not do a template. They literally created like a PowerPoint and a document and
lookbook,
said,
isn't it?
yes, yeah. Um,
Yeah. Center of Excellence you can get through the Microsoft lookbook.
The lookbook, gotcha. Then
Yeah.
the other question was, I haven't tried this in a couple of months. Has anyone been able to successfully create your own SharePoint template and have it go into the From Your Organization tab? I spent 4 months on the phone with Microsoft, and they were sending me down the old-fashioned way of doing it. I kept saying, this isn't gonna work, this isn't gonna work. Sure enough, it didn't work. I created a classic site instead of a modern one.
I mean, Deb,
Yeah, that
we've
was fun.
done
That
that.
was tons of fun.
We've done that a lot of times over the years.
Yeah,
Are
but
you-
they got rid of that old method. It's now this new method, and I've tried it with
Yep.
PowerShell. Their documentation was just wrong, and yeah, I managed to make one template, but it didn't template anything out of my site. So, but it showed up, but it didn't do anything. So, just thought I'd ask. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find a quick learn article on the latest way of doing, because you're right, they did change how to do it with modern. Because it's not so much a template anymore, it's more of like a set of rules to apply after the default template's deployed.
Yeah,
Depending
it's
if you
you
do
got to
on
use
communication.
PowerShell to set it up, and it just the PowerShell command just didn't work. By the way, I'm finding Copilot's really helpful in developing PowerShell scripts because it's not my strong suit, so it's been actually really helpful for me. Saved a ton of time.
Me too,
But-
'cause I'm a little dangerous, and so it's helped me.
My rule of thumb is if any reference is more than 2 years old, I don't even bother. I just
Yeah,
go wrong answer.
Deb, I'm gonna put a link in the chat window here. This is a PMP commandlet.
Thank you.
I would give that a shot.
I'll see that. Let me take a look at it. See if this is what I was using. When was that? When did that come out? Ooh. I've not seen
Not
this
sure,
article. All right,
but
cool.
the
I'll try this
PMP
one.
stuff tends to be up to date most of the time.
All
Yeah,
right.
P-
I'll try that.
PMP
Thanks.
is revolving constantly.
Yeah.
All right, so
Dopo.
moving forward, we do want to thank all of our past sponsors as well, especially a lot of them that helped us support in the first several years of the user group. We are actually having our, I believe, 11th year anniversary this month. So it's been quite a journey since we initially started it back when, the SharePoint user group had more attendees than the Office 365 user group because people weren't quite sure if O365 was going to actually stick around. But we drank the Kool-Aid and
It's
it
a
turned out
bat.
to be
It's
well
for
worth
small
it.
businesses.
All right, I'm gonna pause the recording at this stage.